Dear everyone, welcome to our radio series, Finding Peace in Turmoil. This program is brought to you by the joint efforts of Meditation Master Minh Niem and the Meditation Psychotherapy communities, Mindful Living Land in several places. This radio series is streamed every week on YouTube and podcast on the only official channel, Minh Niem. While the pandemic is still raging around the world, the WHO has just warned that a second wave of outbreaks may return in the coming days. It could be novel and more threatening than the previous one. Vietnam is one of the rare countries to have almost defeated the first pandemic. However, Vietnam is still taking every cautious step in the so-called post-pandemic period to restore the economy, heal minds, and prevent the epidemic from returning. In general, the prospect of the coming days of Vietnam and the whole world is still full of challenges that we cannot underestimate. Above all, we need community power. Any difficulty will be repelled if we all look in the same direction and protect each other. Accordingly, it is essential that each individual should make efforts to do good and avoid doing things that harm others or the common interests. It is more necessary than ever. The sixth radio episode titled Contributing to Subduing Adversity serves as a reminder to ourselves about the principles of living safely in agreement with the universe. In this way, we do hope to continue to be protected by the universe and able to overcome the afflictions ahead. Up next, let us invite you to the Dharma Talk by Master Minh Niem titled Contributing to Subduing Adversity.
Dear listeners, may you be well, peaceful, and happy. Bạch cư dị, bài chú dị was a renowned Chinese poet and Hans Honesty government official. One day, he came to see Zen Master Osho Nẻo Khơ Trào Lĩnh. Zen Master Osho was a unit master who often practiced meditation up in the pine tree and was known as the bird nest Zen Master. The governor asked the elderly monk about the essential meaning of the Buddhist teaching. Zen Master read the following Dharma verses. Do no harm, to do good, my purification, the teaching of Buddha. This means the right Buddha teaches us to shun from doing all bad things, but from every good, and continue to purify our mind. The governor was quite disappointed. With this simple philosophy, he was expecting something more profound. Even 3-year-old knows this, he exclaimed. But even an 80-year-old man cannot do this, replied Zen Master Osho. The governor thought about it for a few minutes, finally understanding, nodded his head and laughed. Later, governor returned frequently to Zen Master Osho to learn meditation, and they became good friends. Do no harm, to do good is a fundamental concept for those who wishes to establish their core values without needing to join a religious group. However, the question is, what do we consider as good and what is bad? How much goodness are enough and how much of do no harm is adequate? We are usually preoccupied with our daily lives, our career, our relationships, etc. Despite our good heart, we tend to only think of doing good deeds and our spare time, or when requested by our family or friends. Charity work is rarely done. Sometimes we do charity because of fame, obligations, or for a personal gain. Generally, to do good is not part of our routines. Helping people around us is not our main objective now. We tend to put it off until after we fulfill our goals or when we retired. Similarly, we are only concerned about making a living, and as long as we don't cause harm to others, that's okay. But are we sure about that? What if we don't harm others directly, but indirectly? In business, it is obvious that we would want the benefits for ourselves. Then doesn't that mean the disadvantages must belong to others? Is our happiness being built on the foundation of the sufferings of others? The process of making a living is naturally a process of disputes, sometimes because of our ego, our greed. We quarrel, cause damages to our opponents, the community, and our own environment. We must understand from the Dharma verses that good deeds are not confined to the materials or money we donate, but they also include words and actions. Many people misunderstood the definition of good karma in Buddhism. Any good deeds that bring harmonious energy to others can be considered as good karma. Thus, bad karma should be understood as any actions or words that can be harmful to others. If our words cause others to suffer, if our actions cause damages, if what we do generates negative energy, that is called bad karma. For those who wish to practice developing their inner soul, they must be different from others. They must constantly try to cultivate as many good deeds as possible and avoid bad karma. The verses above also contain a very profound precept that not many traditions teach. That is purify the mind. In order to do no harm, to do good, we must practice the process of mind purification. Mind purification is the most difficult part of our practice. Ultimately, all practices will lead to the training of the mind. If we cannot change our old habits, then our practice is still very superficial. Even those who manage to attain many levels of jhanas or deep concentration, they can only stop generating unwholesome karma during those hours of meditation only. What about the time when we are not meditating? We cannot meditate hours after hours, months after months. Can we? We still have to go to work, we still have to interact with others. How would we protect our mind in those situations? Can we be in control of our emotions, our defilements? We practice so that each day we become less greedy, less angry, less attached. We practice so that we become a better person, friendlier, humbler, more respectful, and more loving. We no longer are entrapped by old perceptions or beliefs. That is the true measurement, the success of our practice. Mind purification is the calming of the mind, helping it return to its purest form. Whenever the mind is filled with stress and worries, we must find ways to prevent it from radiating the negative energy to the outside. Thoughts can also create karma. It is called intention karma. Unwholesome thoughts such as doubts, judgment, discrimination, hatred, prejudice can generate bad karma because the thoughts will lead to works and to actions very quickly. That is why during our practice, we prevent unwholesome thoughts from generating. If unwholesome thoughts are just thoughts and do not manifest into actions, then the karma won't be as harmful. But it is still an unwholesome karma because when thoughts were created, they carry vibration that can influence others negatively. My purification has another meaning, and that is to bring out the finest seeds planted deep within our soul. For example, if the mind is calm, at peace, liberated, happy, and filled with compassion, those around us can benefit from it. This is the essence of a purified mind that the most people wish to attain. In reality, all of us have this inside of us. Some people were able to bring out this characteristic but failed to reserve it for a long duration. Only with practice that we can sustain a purified mind. Therefore, we can fairly say that it is difficult to practice the three fundamental teachings described by Zen Master Osa: do no harm, to do good, and purify the mind. And so why must we practice these difficult tasks? We should be aware that the energy emitted from our thoughts affects not only ourselves and the surroundings, but also this entire universe. The great Buddha once said an individual can affect other individuals and vice versa. The great Buddha calls this the principle interconnected complex, and the interdependence occur at every moment of life. According to this principle, a thought, words, or actions of someone, whether good or bad, can impact the behavior of a collective somewhere far away without knowing. On the contrary, an unwholesome thought, words, or actions of an individual can contribute to harmful conditions of another individual. A community have the world across. This is hard to understand and hard to believe, right? In the 19th century, a mathematician and a meteorologist, Edward Norton Lawrence, established a chaos theory called butterfly effect. His famous predictability, the flap of the butterfly's wings in Brazil, can set off a tornado in Texas. This is intended to imply that the butterfly's wings cannot cause the tornado, but in a sense, that the flap of the wings is the part of initial condition of an interconnected complex. The flapping wings represents a small chance of the system which cascades to the alteration of events like a domino effect. In chaos theory, a small change in one stage of a nonlinear system can result in large differences in a later stage. A tornado in Texas, thousands of miles from Brazil, cannot simply be caused by a small butterfly. But one can say that without the flapping, a tornado in Texas could possibly never have happened. A cause with matching condition will yield results. Nothing can exist independently of others. All things are interconnected and interdependent. As we can see, a small flap of the butterfly can cause a tornado. Then imagine what will we create when we scream, kick the table, throw our phones, curse and yell. I could only imagine a tsunami. We don't expel venoms only when we are angry. Even a single selfish action that doesn't take into consideration the community and the environment can give off harmful energy. This harmful energy will link with the negative energy already existing in the atmosphere to create an effect or a turbulence somewhere that we are unaware of. Sometimes accidents happen not because we caused it, but we have to bear the consequences. Why do we have to reap what we did not sow? Because we along with others coexist together in this universe, therefore we impact each other. This is the law of the universe. The great Buddha calls this the law of cause and effect. We create the cause, but it alone does not yield effects. It must also combine with the outside conditions. The conditions must have matching vibration frequency with the cause to yield effects. Sometimes we created the cause many years ago, but has not yielded consequences until it encountered corresponding conditions. Or it may take many generations before the effects are complete. Therefore, our ancestors have a saying like this: the father ate salty food, but the son is thirsty. The current pandemic is not simply caused by the coronavirus. There must be an invisible force that already exists out there waiting for the matching variation to yield the disaster. Millions of people are infected. 100,000 of lives were lost. The economy could enter a phase of depression post-pandemic. That is not to say it can leave a long-lasting, devastating decline in moral and values. Humankind is facing the deadliest disaster of all time. Who created this disaster? We all did. We are unaware of all the harmful energy that we create either directly or indirectly in exchange for materials, greed, and fame. If our karma bank still have enough good karma stored, then a virus cannot cause this destruction. The pandemic is a siren signaling to us that our blessings are depleting. The universe wants us to starve if we want to live a healthy life on this planet. The best way to neutralize adversity is to generate positive energy now. In this great pandemic, the work of one individual may not be enough. It would take the whole community, society, and all countries to join hands together. To do good means anyone must try to only do good things, to bring harmony to this world. Do no harm means stop all actions that could be harmful to our environment, our universe. Purify the mind means to do all the above with a pure and sincere mind without any expectation for personal gain. Do all that we can to the best of our ability and let the universe be the judge. Even if our good deeds are not enough to mend all the broken, but maybe the universe will pardon us and help us overcome this difficult time. We must promise to practice this teaching even if we cannot get everyone to participate. Every day, every moment, let each one of us practice first do no harm to do good. Believe in the butterfly effect. Who knows, the universe will bring positive energy from other planets as an encouragement for us. One morning on the beach, a man saw a young boy rowing something continuously at the ocean. He came to see what the boy was up to. There were a lot of starfish that got stuck on shore brought from the high tides last night, and the boy was rowing them back into sea. The man said to the boy, "When will you get to all of them? There are too many starfish." Without answering the man, the boy continues to release each starfish back into the ocean, and each time he would say, "One more home, here it is, another one home." The man decided to help. He rolled up his sleeves, picked up a starfish, and returned it back home. Not longer after, many people saw what the man and the boy was doing and came to help. Before the sunrise that could kill all the starfish, they were rescued by all these generous people. They returned safely to the ocean. Thank you, audience, for listening. I hope we will begin to think of future plans to help ourselves and mankind.
Our ancestors also said, "Man proposes, God disposes," which means no matter how much we cleverly devise and invest all of our talents and efforts to do something, it might not become fruitful because it is also dependent on the universe. All the required dynamics of the same frequency need to come together for the respective effect to take place. As such, to obtain plenty of dynamics of the same frequency and swiftly bring about the significant effect, for instance, the possibility of warding off the ongoing pandemic, we must have many people joining hands to create good energy and together stop generating bad energy, from our livelihood to small daily actions. Now, we invite you to listen to an excerpt of Overcoming Challenges by Making Merits from the book There is Nothing to Fear through the voice of Michael Dell.
When seeing some acquaintances, often met with terrible mishaps, or one disaster after the other, those with more life experience, such as our grandparents or parents, would say, their good merits must be out. They need to make more. When we were little, we did not understand what merits were and why we would be out, or why we would need to make more of them. However, we must admit that those hapless individuals do manage to turn their misfortunes around once they have made more merits by giving away some supplies, food, medicine, or their effort to those in need. It is unsure whether they can get away with their misfortunes or not. However, it seems that thanks to their act of giving, they have received a certain source of energy and have quickly regained their balance, composure, and confidence to push forward once again. Growing up, every time we manage to help someone, especially to alleviate their suffering, restore their zest for life, and make them happy, we also feel happy in return. It is a genuine experience and not a conviction that could be passed on by someone else. It is so very genuine that many people have given up their prime youth, getting married, and even the pursuit of fame or so-called personal career to dedicate themselves to serving and caring for those with disabilities or mental illnesses, or commit to going anywhere people are poor or diseased to offer their aid. It looks as though they have to go through so much and are quite disadvantaged, but they are truly happy. In the old days, when we accidentally dropped some rice onto the table while eating, the adults would always ask us to clean it up and scold us. Another, even more critical act was not finishing a meal, because that would be considered ungrateful. The adults would also tell us to join our palms together and give thanks to everyone who had contributed to the being of that bowl of rice. There is a Vietnamese folk poem that goes, "To those who are holding a full bowl of rice in your hands, please be reminded that one tender grain of rice is the laborious work of many." It is unsure where the source of our ancestors' wealth of knowledge, in which they believe, follow, and pass down to the younger generations was. However, that was indeed a civilized and wise way of living. Scientists today have found that everything in the universe must correlate with one another to exist, or everything has a tight-knit interconnection. The Buddha also said, "This arises, and therefore that arises. This ceases, and therefore that ceases." Or one always encompasses many others. Those are the principles of interconnection. Whatever happens to one will happen to another, or everything around it, because of interconnection. During the pandemic, something we could clearly see was that one person could infect hundreds of others, and hundreds could infect millions. All epidemics start from one infected person. Edward Norton Lorenz, a meteorologist and also an expert of the chaos theory, came up with the butterfly effect theory, with the famous saying, "A flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil can set off a tornado in Texas." It is hard to believe that a butterfly's flap with such a tiny force can create a tornado thousands of miles away. However, Lorenz has proved that a butterfly can definitely change the weather when the dynamics generated from a flap of its wings is met and combined with countless other greater dynamics, which are present everywhere in the universe. It is a combination of many forces that have the same frequency. On the other hand, a flap of another butterfly's wings, or some other activity that also generates some dynamics, can also extinguish or destroy that butterfly. The Buddha clearly expounded this concept as, whatever good or bad seed that we sow, we shall reap the respective fruit. It is the theory of cause effect. However, this theory should be fully stated as cause, effect, and causality, which means a single seed created cannot produce fruit just yet. It needs to be combined with other causes and conditions created by other individuals to be able to become fruit. In this way, a good fruit, or some good fortune that we receive, is not totally ours, just like a bad fruit or an unfortunate event cannot be entirely caused by us either. A simpler way to put it would be one might have to bear the result of another's action, because we are all individuals in a collective of identities. However, the Buddha saw that once we create the cause, it is ourselves who will receive the effect at a greater extent than any others. Therefore, the Buddha always advised us to do good deeds whenever possible and try to avoid bad and harmful ones. When we meet with so many misfortunes or upheavals in life all at once, we should reflect on what we have done so far, from the way we earn our living to smaller things such as our daily speech and actions, instead of blaming others and complaining. Even when we cannot find anything wrong or detrimental in our ways with others, we should still take positive actions of sharing and giving material and emotional support to someone. And that way, we are also making contributions toward our bank of merits. It is what our ancestors regard as making more, or accumulating, merits. The word accumulating is quite explanatory, as it describes the action of searching or hoping for something so much that it is almost as if we are begging others to allow us to help them so that we can attain the merits. It is very different from offering or doing charity. The act of giving in this context, of course, is not yet a noble action, as it comes from personal and self-driven motivation. But it is totally acceptable, for it is still bringing benefits to others. It only turns wrong when the giver sees his or her act of giving as so precious and deserving of praise and glorification, while showing an attitude of irreverence toward the receiver. Therefore, a wise person, once donating anything to someone, would immediately say thanks or express humbleness while or after carrying out their act of giving. They would even consider the receiver as their benefactor. Giving with such an understanding and beautiful attitude will surely create an abundant source of wholesome energy. And if this energy is still not enough to repel adversity, then let's proactively continue with our good deeds. We can even invite our relatives and acquaintances to make more merits with us. Please remember that on the one hand, we should create wholesome energy, and on the other, we also have to minimize or discontinue any actions that may generate negative or harmful energy for those around us, our community, and environment. For that reason, just making merits alone is not enough. Our ancestors also said, "Man proposes, God disposes," which means no matter how much we cleverly devise and invest all of our talent and effort to do something, it might not become fruitful because it is also dependent on the universe. All the required dynamics of the same frequency need to come together for the respective effect to take place. As such, to obtain plenty of dynamics of the same frequency and swiftly bring about the significant effect, for instance, the possibility of warding off the ongoing pandemic, we must have many people joining hands to create good energy, and together stop generating bad energy, from our livelihood to small daily actions. If we wait for the critical policies to be enacted, or for everyone to work together, we will have to wait much longer. For the sake of understanding and love, let us light up a fire in the middle of the winter night, and millions of others will follow. Let's prove to the universe that we have repented our mistakes and sincerely wish to correct them, and will keep our promise for generations to come. When the collective energy that we send to the universe is significant enough, we will definitely receive a sure response, and at least some help in diminishing the post-pandemic crisis, so that humankind will not fall victim to destitution, distress, and psychological trauma.
During the peak of the epidemic, many countries around the world, apart from being under great pressure from an increasing number of patients, also witnessed many noble human acts, including not only the huge sacrifices of those working in the healthcare, but also of the whole community for each other in the most difficult times. Up next, let us invite you to listen to the letter of the President of Germany, Mr. Frank-Walter Steinmeier, about the concerns and hopes that he has for German people, but it is also his thoughts for everyone in the world. This letter will be narrated by Bernard Richard Adams.
Good evening, fellow citizens. In a few hours, Easter festivities will begin. Outside, nature is in bloom. We yearn to go outdoors and spend time with each other to see those we hold dear, friends and family. That's what we used to do. That's how it always was. But this year, everything is different. It hurts having to do without visiting our parents. It breaks grandparents' hearts that they cannot at least hug their grandchildren at Easter time. And many other things are different this year as well. There are no colourful crowds mingling in parks and street cafes. Many of you have had to give up your long-awaited holiday. For restaurants and hotel owners, there is no sunny start to the season. Believers cannot join in prayer. And all of us are asking ourselves the nagging question, what will tomorrow bring? Of all times, at Easter, during the festival of the resurrection, when Christians around the world celebrate life's victory over death, we must restrict our activities so that disease and death do not claim victory over life. Many thousands have died, here in our country, as well as in Bergamo, Alsace, Madrid and New York, and many other places in the world. The images are deeply moving. We mourn those who die alone. We think of their loved ones who cannot even gather and say goodbye. We are grateful to the tireless healthcare workers whose job it is to save lives. And even though all our worlds have been upended, we think of those who are particularly hard hit by the crisis, those who are sick or lonely, and those who are worried about losing their job or their company, the freelancers and artists who are losing their income, the families and the single parents who live in small apartments without a garden or a balcony. This pandemic is showing us that we are indeed vulnerable. Maybe for too long we thought ourselves to be invincible, that the future would take us faster, farther and higher. That was a delusion. But that's not the only thing this crisis is revealing. It is also showing us how strong we are and what we can build on. I am deeply impressed by the great feat our country has accomplished in recent weeks. We have not yet put the danger behind us. However, already today, it is clear that each and every one of you has radically changed your life, and each and every one of you has thereby saved lives. And you are saving more, day by day. It is a good thing that the state is now taking vigorous action in a crisis that has taken us into uncharted territory. I ask you all for your continued trust, because those in government at federal and lander level are aware of their tremendous responsibility. But what exactly lies ahead, or when and how restrictions can be eased, these things are not up to politicians and experts alone. Rather, this will be determined by us all, by our patience and our discipline, especially now, when this is most challenging for us. The great feat that we are accomplishing these days is succeeding not because we are being forced by an iron hand, but because we are a thriving democracy with responsible citizens. A democracy in which we trust one another to listen to facts and arguments, to be wise and do the right thing. A democracy in which every life counts, and in which everyone is making a difference. As a nurse or the Federal Chancellor, as a committee of scientists or a visible or invisible pillar of our society, sitting at a supermarket cash register, or at the wheel of a bus or a lorry, working in a bakery, on a farm, or in a rubbish collection. So many of you are going above and beyond. Thank you for that. Of course, I know that we all yearn to return to normality. But what exactly does that mean? Getting back as soon as possible to our old routine and habits? No. The world that lies ahead will be different. What will it look like? That is up to us. Let us learn from everything, the good and the bad, that all of us are experiencing day by day in this crisis. I believe we are at a fork in the road. Already now, in this crisis, it is clear that we have two options. Will it be every man and woman for him and herself, with us elbowing our way through life, gathering what we can and making sure our own needs are met? Or will we keep our newly found dedication to each other and to society? Will we maintain the creativity and willingness to help that has burst onto the scene? Will we stay in touch with the elderly neighbour whom we helped with his shopping? Will we continue giving the cashier and the postman the appreciation they deserve? What is more, when the crisis is over, will we remember how much we should value the essential work that is being done by caregivers, those who supply our needs in daily life, and those working in social professions, nurseries and schools? Will the ones who survive this crisis economically intact help those who have been hardest hit? And will we join up around the world to search for a solution? Or will we fall back into isolation and everyone going it alone? Let us share all knowledge and research so that we can more rapidly find a vaccine and therapies. And let us form a global alliance that works to ensure that the poorest and most vulnerable countries also get access. No, this pandemic is not a war. It does not pit nations against nations or soldiers against soldiers. Rather, it is a test of our humanity. It brings out the worst and the best in people. Let us show each other our best side. Let us hang on to that precious realization. The solidarity that you are currently showing every day is what we will need even more of in the future. After this crisis, we will be different as a society. We do not want society to become anxious or distrustful. Instead, we can become a more trusting, considerate, and confident society. Am I expressing too much hope? This is something over which the virus holds no sway. It is solely up to us. Many things will certainly not get easier in the weeks and months to come. Yet we Germans are not really known for taking the easy way out. We demand much of ourselves, and we have great faith in one another. We can and we will grow, also through this experience.
Dear everyone, the days of isolation will eventually end, and we will gradually return to a familiar pace of life. But in these past days, each of us must have had truly special experiences. It is the solidarity in helping the needy, the connection with a family that we once thought we would never have time to make, the rare opportunity for us to return within and to recognize fears, confusion, boredom, or peace and relaxation. These experiences have equipped us well to continue to live a higher quality and fresher life when we can care for and help other people around us. But do not forget to return within to nurture ourselves. Radio episode number 6 is concluding here. Thank you for listening and see you again in the next episode at the earliest time. And please note, although we are no longer performing social distancing, we should not mindlessly forget to protect ourselves through the basic steps we have taken, such as regularly washing hands, wearing masks, and keeping 2 meters apart in public places. We wish you would always commit to your practice regardless of the circumstances, so that we can all together create a truly sustainable and peaceful community.